Apache Girl and Cowboy, a Western tale of survival and trust. The sun was low over the wide western plains, spreading long shadows across the dry grass as Daniel Carter guided his horse along a narrow trail near a quiet riverbed. The land was vast and lonely, stretching farther than the eye could see, and Daniel had always preferred it that way. He lived far from town, choosing isolation after years of disappointment that had slowly turned him into a quiet and careful man. People knew him as reliable but distant, someone who spoke only when necessary and worked harder than anyone else in the region. That evening felt no different at first. The air was still, and the only sounds were the horse's steady steps and the soft wind moving through the tall grass. Daniel was checking the outer edges of his land, making sure the fences were still strong after a recent storm. As he reached a bend near the rocky riverbank, he noticed something unusual. A faint movement among the stones. He slowed his horse, watching carefully. Out here, danger could come from animals, strangers, or simple misunderstandings. He dismounted quietly and stepped closer. But what he saw made him pause. Sitting against a large rock was a young Apache woman. Bash looked exhausted, her clothes dusty from travel, her posture guarded even in weakness. Her eyes lifted toward him with caution, ready to defend herself if necessary. Daniel kept his distance, raising one hand slightly to show he meant no harm. For a moment neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy, but not hostile. Daniel noticed how tired she seemed, and without stepping closer, he took a water canteen from his saddle and gently placed it on the ground a few feet away. He stepped back again, allowing her to decide. After a short hesitation, she reached for it and drank slowly. That small moment created the first thread of trust between them. Her name was Tala. She explained quietly that she had been traveling for days after becoming separated from her people. She did not share every detail, and Daniel did not press her, but he understood that some stories required time before they could be told. Instead, he offered a simple solution. His ranch was nearby, and she could rest there until she regained her strength. Tala hesitated, studying him carefully, weighing risk against need. Finally, she nodded. The ride back to the ranch was silent but not uncomfortable. Tala rode one of Daniel's spare horses, keeping a respectful distance. As they approached the ranch, she observed everything: the layout of the land, the barn, the small wooden house, and the animals moving peacefully in the pasture. It was clear that Daniel took pride in his work. Nothing was fancy, but everything was well cared for. Inside the house, Daniel prepared a simple meal and left space for her to settle without feeling trapped. Tala remained alert, watching how he moved, how he spoke, and how he respected her boundaries. He avoided sudden movements and spoke in a calm, steady tone. She realized that his quiet nature came from patience rather than coldness. The first few days passed slowly. Tala rested and recovered her strength while Daniel continued his daily routines. He never asked questions she was not ready to answer, and that respect made her feel safer. Gradually, she began helping with small tasks, feeding the chickens, cleaning tools, and observing how he managed the ranch. Daniel noticed her willingness to contribute and appreciated it, though he did not say much aloud. One morning, she woke before sunrise and stepped outside. The sky was painted with soft colors, and the world felt peaceful. Daniel joined her silently, handing her a warm drink. They stood side by side, watching the horizon. That quiet shared moment marked the beginning of something new, a connection built not on words, but on mutual understanding. As days turned into a week, Tala began opening up more. She spoke about her journey in small pieces, revealing hints of challenges and loss without going into full detail. Daniel listened without judgment. He had his own past filled with memories he rarely shared, and he recognized the strength it took to speak about difficult experiences. Slowly, he started sharing parts of his story too. How he had once lived closer to town, how he had lost family and chosen solitude afterward. Frank. Their conversations remained simple, but meaningful. Tala realized that Daniel's silence was not emptiness, but careful thought. He valued honesty in actions more than long speeches. She felt respected in a way she had not expected. The ranch itself became a place of healing. The steady rhythm of work gave both of them a sense of purpose. Tala learned how to repair fences and care for the horses, while Daniel listened as she explained how to read signs in nature, tracks in the soil, changes in wind direction, and subtle movements that revealed hidden stories of the land. Each shared skill strengthened their growing partnership. Not everything was easy. Tala sometimes felt uncertain about staying too long, worried she might be a burden or that trouble could follow her. Daniel sensed her hesitation but chose not to pressure her. Instead, he showed trust by giving her freedom. She could leave whenever she wished, and knowing that made her more comfortable staying. One afternoon, a group of travelers passed near the ranch. Tala became tense, stepping back into the shadows of the barn. Daniel noticed and positioned himself calmly nearby, ready to protect without drawing attention. The travelers moved on without incident, but Tala realized that Daniel had quietly stood by her without question. That moment deepened her sense of safety. As the days continued, laughter slowly found its way into their routines. Small mistakes during chores turned into shared smiles. Meals became longer, conversations warmer. The ranch no longer felt like a temporary shelter, but something closer to a home. Daniel began noticing changes in himself as well. The silence that once felt heavy now felt comfortable because it was shared. He found himself looking forward to mornings, curious about what the day might bring. Tala's presence brought energy back into his life without demanding anything from him. Still, both of them understood that trust took time. They moved forward carefully, respecting boundaries, while allowing their connection to grow naturally. The vast western landscape around them seemed to mirror their journey, wide open and full of unknown possibilities. As the first part of their story closes, the evening sun sets behind the hills, casting warm light over the ranch. Tala stands near the fence watching the horses, while Daniel repairs a gate nearby. They exchange a quiet glance, a simple acknowledgement of how far they have come in such a short time. Neither knows what the future will bring, but both feel that something meaningful has begun. A partnership shaped by survival, patience, and the first fragile steps toward trust. The mornings at the ranch began to follow a steady rhythm. As the sun rose slowly over the plains, Daniel would already be outside checking the animals, while Tala moved quietly through the yard, growing more confident with each passing day. What had once felt like a temporary stay had slowly turned into a routine neither of them had planned, but both had accepted. Tala no longer watched every movement with constant suspicion, though she still carried a natural alertness shaped by her past. She had begun to understand Daniel's habits, how he spoke little but noticed everything, how he preferred to show kindness through actions instead of long conversations. He, in return, had learned to read her expressions, understanding when she wanted silence and when she was ready to talk. One early morning, the sky filled with soft colors as Tala stood outside near the wooden fence, looking toward the distant mountains. Daniel approached quietly, carrying 2 cups of warm coffee. He handed one to her without speaking. She accepted it with a small nod, and for a while they simply watched the sunrise together.
"You miss your people," Daniel said finally, his voice calm.
Tala hesitated before answering. "Yes, but I do not know where they are now." Her words carried both strength and uncertainty. Daniel did not try to offer solutions. Instead, he listened. That simple act made her feel understood. She had met many people who spoke quickly without listening, but Daniel's patience allowed her to feel safe enough to continue.
As the days went on, their conversations became deeper.
Tala began sharing stories from her childhood, memories of long journeys, lessons learned from elders, and the importance of reading nature as if it were a living guide.
Daniel found himself fascinated by her perspective.
He had lived his entire life on the land, yet her understanding added new layers to things he thought he already knew. In return, Daniel slowly revealed parts of his own past. He spoke about the years when the ranch had been full of life, when family and friends filled the house with laughter. After loss changed everything, he had chosen isolation as a way to protect himself from more pain. Tala listened carefully, recognizing the quiet sadness behind his steady voice. Their shared honesty began to change the atmosphere around them. Work at the ranch felt lighter. They moved like partners rather than strangers, often completing tasks without needing to speak because they understood each other's intentions. Tala proved to be strong and capable, taking on difficult work without complaint. Daniel respected her independence and stopped seeing her as someone needing protection all the time. Instead, he began to see her as an equal. One afternoon, while repairing a fence near the edge of the property, Tala noticed tracks in the dirt. She knelt down, studying them closely. Daniel watched as she explained how the marks showed that a group of riders had passed through recently. Her calm confidence impressed him. He realized that her knowledge went far beyond simple survival. It came from years of learning and experience. Despite the growing comfort between them, the outside world slowly began to remind them that not everyone would understand their partnership. A few travelers stopped by the ranch, looking for supplies. Their curiosity turned toward Tala quickly, and their questions carried an edge of judgment. Daniel answered firmly, making it clear that she was welcome there. His calm but strong response ended the conversation, but Tala noticed the way he stood slightly closer to her afterward. Later that evening, she asked why he defended her so openly. Daniel shrugged lightly. Because it is the right thing to do. His answer was simple, but it meant more than long speeches. Tala felt something shift inside her, a growing trust not just in his kindness but in his courage. The ranch began to feel different, as seasons slowly changed. The air turned cooler, and preparations for colder weather filled their days. Together, they gathered firewood, repaired weak structures, and made sure supplies were ready. Working side by side created moments of shared laughter, especially when small mistakes turned into lighthearted memories. During one long evening, they sat near the fire inside the house. The quiet glow of the flames created a peaceful atmosphere. Tala spoke more openly than before, revealing the struggles she faced after being separated from her people. She described moments of uncertainty and fear, but also the determination that kept her moving forward. Daniel listened without interrupting, understanding that sharing such memories required courage. In turn, he admitted that loneliness had become familiar to him. Not because he wanted it, but because he had stopped believing that real connection was possible. Tala's presence had begun to change that belief. Saying those words aloud surprised him, but it felt honest. Their bond deepened through these conversations. They learned to trust not only in shared work, but also in emotional understanding. Tala began to smile more often, her guarded expression slowly replaced by warmth. Daniel noticed the change and found himself smiling more too. Still, Tala struggled with an internal conflict. She worried that staying at the ranch might prevent her from finding her people. Some nights she walked alone under the stars, thinking about her path. Daniel never followed or asked where she went. He trusted her choices, and that trust allowed her to feel respected rather than controlled. One afternoon, a strong windstorm passed through the area, testing the ranch's stability. Together, they worked quickly to secure animals and protect supplies. The challenge showed how well they functioned as a team. When the storm finally passed, they stood side by side, tired but satisfied. Tala realized that she felt stronger with Daniel beside her, and Daniel realized that the ranch no longer felt empty. As time moved forward, their relationship balanced carefully between friendship, partnership, and something deeper that neither fully defined yet. They shared meals, stories, and moments of quiet reflection. The land around them seemed to change as well, no longer feeling like a lonely stretch of wilderness, but a place filled with meaning. One evening, while watching the sunset, Tala spoke softly. "Dispatch. I did not expect to find peace here." Daniel looked toward the horizon before answering. Neither did I. The simplicity of that exchange captured everything they had built so far. Two people who began as strangers but were slowly learning how trust grows through patience, respect, and shared experience. As the second part of their story closes, the ranch stands strong against the fading light of day. Tala and Daniel continue their work, unaware of the challenges still ahead but confident in the bond they have formed. The journey from survival toward trust is no longer just beginning. It is becoming the foundation of something lasting, shaped by courage, understanding, and the willingness to open their hearts to change. The days grew shorter as the season slowly changed, bringing cooler winds across the plains. The ranch continued to move with its steady rhythm, but something deeper had begun to grow between Daniel and Tala. What had started as simple cooperation had turned into a strong partnership built on shared work, quiet understanding, and trust that had formed little by little. One morning, dark clouds gathered earlier than expected. The air felt heavy, and the animals became restless. Tala noticed the signs before Daniel said anything. She pointed toward the sky, explaining how the changing wind and the way birds moved suggested a strong storm was coming. Daniel trusted her judgment immediately. Together, they began preparing, securing loose tools, guiding the horses into safer areas, and reinforcing parts of the barn that had shown weakness before.
As the storm arrived, heavy rain and strong winds swept across the land.
The sound of thunder echoed through the hills, and the ranch faced one of its hardest tests since Tala had arrived. Daniel worked quickly but calmly, and Tala matched his pace without hesitation. They communicated through simple gestures and brief words, showing how deeply they had learned to rely on each other. During one intense moment, a section of fence broke loose under the pressure of the wind. Without thinking twice, Tala ran toward it, holding it steady while Daniel secured it properly. Their teamwork turned a dangerous situation into a moment of strength. By the time the storm finally passed, both were exhausted, but proud of what they had accomplished together. That night, they sat inside the house, wrapped in blankets near the fire. The storm had left the world outside quiet and still, as if the land itself was resting. Tala spoke first, her voice soft but steady. She shared more about the journey that had brought her to this place. Not just the physical distance she had traveled, but the emotional struggles she had faced along the way. She described how losing connection with her people had made her feel as though she had lost part of herself. She had moved forward because she had no other choice, but fear had followed her at every step. Daniel listened carefully, understanding that speaking about such experiences required trust. He realized that her strength came not from avoiding fear, but from continuing despite it. In return, Daniel opened up more than he ever had before. He spoke about the years when the ranch had been full of hope and laughter, and how loss had slowly taken that away from him. Choosing solitude had felt easier than risking more pain. Tala listened quietly, recognizing the loneliness behind his calm exterior. Their conversation marked a turning point. They were no longer just two individuals sharing space. They were becoming true companions who understood each other's struggles. As the following weeks passed, they worked together to repair damage from the storm. The tasks were challenging, but they approached each one with determination. Tala showed remarkable skill in finding efficient solutions, while Daniel provided steady leadership. Their different strengths blended naturally, making the work feel less like a burden and more like a shared goal.
However, not all challenges came from nature. One afternoon, Daniel traveled to a nearby town for supplies, and Tala chose to go with him for the first time since arriving at the ranch.
The town felt crowded and unfamiliar after weeks of peaceful isolation. People turned to look at them, some with curiosity, others with uncertainty. Tala felt the weight of their attention, but Daniel stayed close without drawing unnecessary focus. Inside the general store, conversations paused briefly as they entered. Daniel greeted the shopkeeper calmly, maintaining his usual respectful manner. Tala noticed how his presence created a sense of calm around them. Though some people watched quietly, no one caused trouble. Still, the experience reminded her that the world beyond the ranch was more complicated. On the ride back, she admitted that she felt uncomfortable being watched so closely. Daniel nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. He told her that not everyone would understand their situation, but that did not change what was right. His words reassured her, strengthening the trust she already felt. As days turned into weeks, their bond deepened through shared experiences. They began to laugh more freely, teasing each other gently during work. Even simple moments, like cooking dinner together or watching the sunset, became meaningful. Tala found herself feeling peaceful in ways she had not experienced for a long time. Daniel noticed how the ranch felt alive again, filled with quiet energy. One evening, while walking along the edge of the property, Tala noticed distant tracks that suggested travelers had passed through recently. She explained her observations to Daniel, showing him how subtle details revealed hidden stories. He listened carefully, impressed by her knowledge. In return, he taught her new methods for caring for the animals and maintaining the ranch equipment. Their exchange of skills symbolized the balance in their relationship, both learning, both growing. Despite the growing comfort, Tala sometimes wondered about her future. She still hoped to find news of her people, but she also felt connected to the life she was building at the ranch. The uncertainty created an emotional struggle she rarely spoke about. Daniel sensed her thoughts but allowed her space, believing that trust meant giving freedom rather than control. One quiet night, they sat outside under a sky filled with stars. Tala asked Daniel if he ever regretted choosing a life of solitude. He paused before answering honestly. "I thought I needed it," he said, "but maybe I was just afraid to hope for something more." His words stayed with her long after the conversation ended. She realized that both of them were learning to face fear in new ways, not through isolation, but through connection.
As winter approached, they prepared the ranch together, strengthening their teamwork further.
Each challenge they faced brought them closer, turning shared effort into shared confidence. The land around them seemed to reflect their journey. Strong, resilient, and shaped by time. By the end of this part of their story, the relationship between Daniel and Tala had transformed significantly. What began as cautious cooperation had become a deep partnership built on trust, respect, and emotional understanding. They had faced storms both literal and personal, and each experience had strengthened the bond between them. The final scene shows them standing near the barn at sunset, watching the sky change colors. Neither speaks, yet both feel the same quiet realization, that their lives have changed in ways neither expected. The journey ahead remains uncertain, but they now face it together, guided by the trust they have built through patience, courage, and shared experience. The cold winds of early winter moved slowly across the plains, carrying a quiet stillness that settled over the ranch. Daniel and Tala had grown used to working side by side, and their days followed a rhythm that felt natural now. The animals were cared for, the fences repaired, and the house filled with a sense of calm that neither of them had expected when their paths first crossed. Yet beneath that calm, change was approaching. One morning, while Daniel sorted supplies in the barn, a rider appeared at the far edge of the property. Tala noticed him first. Her posture shifted instantly, alert but not afraid. The rider approached slowly, raising a hand in greeting. He carried no sign of threat, but something about his presence felt important. Daniel stepped forward cautiously, standing beside Tala. The rider explained that he had passed through a distant camp where a small group of Apache travelers had recently been seen moving through the region. The news caught Tala's attention immediately. She listened carefully as the man described the direction they were heading and how long ago he had seen them. When the rider left, silence filled the space between Daniel and Tala. For months, she had wondered about her people without knowing where to begin. Searching. Now, suddenly, there was a possibility. Daniel spoke gently. "If you want to go, I will help you prepare." Tala nodded slowly, but her expression showed mixed emotions. Hope and uncertainty moved together inside her. She had found peace at the ranch, yet the chance to reconnect with her past stirred something deep within her. Over the next few days, they prepared for a journey. Supplies were packed carefully, horses chosen for endurance, and routes discussed under the soft glow of lantern light. Though neither said it directly, both understood that this journey could change everything. The morning they left, the sky was clear and cold. Tala rode beside Daniel as they followed a trail that wound through hills and open land. The journey felt different from her earlier travels. This time, she was not alone. Daniel rode with steady confidence, watching the path ahead while also paying attention to her pace. During long stretches of silence, Tala found herself reflecting on how much had changed since she first arrived at the ranch. But she remembered her fear, her hesitation, and the slow growth of trust that had reshaped her view of the world. Daniel, too, felt the weight of the journey. He understood that helping her meant accepting the possibility that she might choose a different path afterward.
They traveled for several days, camping beneath open skies.
Around a fire at night, their conversations deepened further. Tala spoke about her childhood, the traditions she had learned, and the people who had shaped her identity. Daniel listened with genuine interest, realizing how little he had known before meeting her. In return, he shared more about his own hopes, things he had once pushed aside. He admitted that before Tala arrived, he had stopped imagining a future beyond daily survival. Saying those words felt strange but honest. As they continued, the land grew more rugged. Trails became harder to follow, and the weather tested their endurance. Yet their partnership made each challenge easier. Tala's skill in tracking helped them stay on course, while Daniel's knowledge of the terrain ensured their safety. One evening, as they reached a ridge overlooking a distant valley, Tala noticed signs that confirmed they were close. Small traces left behind by travelers, a carefully arranged group of stones, faint tracks hidden in dry soil.
Gave her hope.
Her pace quickened, and Daniel followed, understanding the importance of the moment. The next day, they finally reached a small gathering of people near a sheltered area. Tala slowed her horse, her heart beating fast. Familiar faces turned toward her, and recognition spread quickly. The reunion was emotional but calm, filled with relief rather than overwhelming drama.
She greeted elders and friends she had feared she might never see again.
Daniel stayed respectfully at a distance, allowing her space to reconnect. Watching her among her people, he felt both proud and uncertain. He wanted her happiness, even if it meant she might not return with him. Over the next few days, Tala spent time catching up on everything she had missed. She shared stories of her journey and spoke about the ranch and the cowboy who had helped her. The elders listened carefully, offering wisdom and encouragement. During quiet moments, Tala felt torn between two worlds. Being with her people reminded her of where she came from, yet she realized how much she had changed. The life she had built with Daniel had given her strength, independence, and a new sense of belonging.
One evening, she walked away from the camp and found Daniel sitting near a small fire.
The sky above them was filled with stars, and the silence felt familiar.
"You helped me find my way back," she said softly.
Buy-in. Daniel nodded. "You were always strong enough to find it yourself." She shook her head gently. "Maybe, but I was not alone this time." Their conversation carried honesty without pressure. Daniel never asked what she would choose next. Instead, he trusted that she would follow her own path. As days passed, Tala realized that her journey was no longer about choosing one life over another. She had grown beyond the fear that once controlled her decisions. The trust she had built with Daniel allowed her to see new possibilities. A life where she could stay connected to her people while also embracing the future she had discovered. The decision did not come suddenly. It grew slowly through reflection and conversations with elders who encouraged her to follow what felt true to her heart.
On the morning she made her choice, she approached Daniel with calm certainty.
Best. She explained that she wanted to maintain her bond with her people but also return to the ranch. The ranch had become more than a place of safety. It had become a place where she felt valued and free. Daniel listened quietly, relief and happiness softening his expression. He had prepared himself for any outcome. But hearing her decision felt like a new beginning. As they prepared to leave together, Tala said goodbye to her people with gratitude, promising to visit again. The farewell carried warmth rather than sadness, showing that she was not leaving one world behind but building bridges between both. The journey back to the ranch felt lighter. Their conversations were filled with renewed energy, and the road ahead seemed filled with possibility. By the time the familiar outline of the ranch appeared in the distance, both felt that they had crossed an invisible threshold. The ranch stood waiting, unchanged yet different because of what they had experienced. As they dismounted and walked toward the house, the setting sun painted the land with golden light. Neither needed to say what they were feeling. Their journey had tested their trust, and that trust had grown stronger. This part of their story ends with them standing side by side, looking out over the land they now shared. Survival had brought them together, but choice had brought them back. The future remained unknown, yet it felt full of hope, a quiet promise shaped by courage, understanding, and the strength they had found in each other. The ranch felt different when Daniel and Tala returned, even though nothing had physically changed. The wooden fences stood where they always had, the barn doors creaked in the same familiar way, and the wide plain stretched endlessly under the open sky. Yet both of them carried new understanding inside themselves. The journey they had taken had not only helped Tala reconnect with her people, but had also shown them what their partnership truly meant. The first morning back, Tala woke before sunrise, as she often did. She stepped outside and breathed deeply, taking in the quiet air. The ranch no longer felt like a temporary refuge. It felt like a place she had chosen. That difference gave her a sense of calm she had never known before. Daniel joined her a few minutes later, carrying 2 cups of coffee. They stood together in silence, watching the sun slowly rise over the horizon. No words were needed. The shared quiet between them felt comfortable, filled with mutual understanding. Work resumed quickly. There were fences to check, animals to feed, and supplies to organize after their time away. Tala moved confidently through each task, no longer unsure of her place. She took initiative naturally, and Daniel appreciated how easily they worked as a team. Best, the ranch began to feel more alive than ever. They added small changes inspired by Tala's traditions, organizing certain tools differently, planting herbs near the house, and creating spaces where they could sit outside and reflect. Daniel welcomed these additions, seeing how they blended with the life he had built over years of hard work. News of their return spread quietly through nearby communities. A few neighbors stopped by, curious about their journey. Some were cautious at first, but many were respectful. Tala noticed that attitudes seemed different now. Perhaps it was the confidence she carried, or the calm way Daniel stood beside her. But conversations felt more open and less uncertain. Bust. One afternoon, an older rancher named Thomas visited. He had known Daniel for years and had rarely seen him this at ease. After a long conversation about weather, cattle, and the changing seasons, Thomas smiled slightly and said, "Looks like you found something worth holding on to." Daniel did not answer directly, but the small smile on his face spoke enough. Tala also found herself building connections slowly. She began trading skills with nearby families, teaching tracking and nature awareness while learning new farming techniques in return. These exchanges strengthened her sense of belonging without taking away her independence. Despite the peace surrounding them, challenges continued to appear, as they always did in ranch life. One week, a group of wild horses moved dangerously close to their grazing land, causing tension among the animals. Daniel and Tala worked together to guide them away safely. Their teamwork felt seamless, built on months of trust and shared experience. During long evenings after work, they often sat outside watching the stars. These quiet moments became their favorite part of the day. Tala spoke about visiting her people again in the future, and Daniel encouraged her without hesitation. He understood that supporting her meant respecting every part of who she was. One evening she asked him gently, "Do you ever regret letting someone into your life again?"
Daniel thought for a long moment before answering.
"No. I regret waiting so long." Psst. His honesty filled the space between them with warmth. Tala realized how far they had both come from the cautious strangers they once were. Trust had grown slowly, shaped by patience rather than sudden emotion. As winter deepened, they prepared the ranch together, strengthening structures and planning for colder nights. Their conversations often turned toward the future, not with pressure or expectation but with quiet curiosity. They spoke about expanding the ranch, improving certain areas, and creating a place that reflected both of their identities. One morning, Tala suggested building a small gathering space where travelers could rest safely if needed. Daniel agreed immediately. The idea felt meaningful, especially because their own journey had begun with an act of kindness and shelter. Together they designed the space carefully, turning it into a symbol of the trust that had brought them together. Over time, the ranch became known not just as Daniel's quiet home but as a place where people were treated with respect. Travelers passing through often spoke about the welcoming atmosphere. Tala found joy in helping others feel safe, remembering how much that had meant to her when she first arrived. Their relationship continued to grow naturally. It did not rush to define it with labels. Instead, they focused on building something steady and real, a partnership based on shared goals and mutual respect. One evening, as snow began to fall lightly across the land, they walked together along the edge of the property. The world felt calm, covered in soft white light. Tala stopped and looked around thoughtfully. "When I first came here, I thought I was surviving," she said quietly. "Now I feel like I am living." Daniel nodded, understanding completely. He had experienced the same transformation without realizing it at first.
The following months brought new opportunities and small victories. The ranch thrived,
their teamwork growing stronger with each challenge they faced. Laughter became more common, filling the house with warmth that had been missing for years. As spring slowly returned, the land awakened with new life. Flowers appeared along the trails, and the animals moved with renewed energy. Daniel and Tala stood together one morning watching the fields, reflecting on everything that had happened since their first meeting. They had begun as strangers brought together by chance. Survival had forced them to rely on each other, but trust had allowed something deeper to grow.
Their journey had not been easy, yet every challenge had shaped them into stronger individuals and partners. The story ends on a quiet evening at sunset.
The sky glows with warm colors as Daniel and Tala stand side by side, looking out over the land they now share. The ranch is no longer a place of loneliness, but a symbol of growth, healing, and connection. Neither knows exactly what the future will bring, but they face it together with confidence. Their journey shows that trust is built slowly, through actions rather than promises, and that real strength comes from allowing another person to walk beside you. What began as a story of survival has become a story of belonging, a life shaped by courage, understanding, and the simple power of choosing to trust again.